Mother, 38, is arrested in front of her children and locked in a cell for 7 hours after calling a transgender woman a man on Twitter. It's fascinating. But I don't think anyone's going to be surprised to hear that this is a story that takes place in the United Kingdom. Actually, I'm making that assumption, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the UK. I love America. I really, really do. I'm so happy to be a citizen of this country. I'm so happy that we have a constitution and a Bill of Rights. I'm so happy that I can quite literally call the government stupid, right? Or, you know, that was a bit toned down. I can literally stick my middle finger up in the air, yell at whoever I want, and say whatever I want. You can't arrest me for it. To an extent, right? You know, if you incite, or there are some instances where it's harassment or incitement to violence. I get it. The point is, you're not going to see this in the U.S., hopefully, because we do have human rights laws now where businesses can be fined for misgendering. But let's read the story, and we'll talk about the issue. And there's another thing I want to bring up, too, just like Nick Monroe on Twitter brought up a really interesting point about what's going on in the UK. We'll get to that because what we're looking at is on Twitter. Essentially, look, it's one thing in the US if you're banned. You're in the US, you make a comment, you get banned from Twitter because you've misgendered someone. This woman got arrested for it. Like the UK, you've lost your minds. I'm sorry. I know I have a decent amount of viewers in the UK. Guys, I'm really sorry. I really am. You know, I've had this conversation with Sargon before when he talks about issues like this, and I'm just like sitting back, sipping my coffee, just like, you know, stroking my mustache like, man, it's a pretty good First Amendment we got there. It would be a shame if, it's a shame, you know, a country like yours, you don't have it. It's actually terrifying. But whenever we see stories like this, it really makes me appreciate that Bill of Rights so much more. But let's read it. A mother was arrested in front of her children and locked up for 7 hours after referring to a transgender woman as a man online. But let me just say this. Look, I take no pleasure. I do not support being mean or disrespectful or rude to people. I try to avoid naming a lot of people. I don't want to lead harassment against them. Sometimes people need to be named. Sometimes people are bad. And I believe you have a right to call someone whatever you want. I don't believe in being mean, but at the same time, you shouldn't be arrested for being mean. That's crazy, because mean is in the eye of the beholder. Offense is in the eye of the beholder. And what happens when someone just accidentally misgenders someone? You're gonna get arrested for accidentally saying a word? Get out of here, man. That's nuts. This is getting crazy. UK, I'm sorry. You guys, your government's gone nuts. Okay, this is tyranny, straight up tyranny. 3 officers detained Kate Scottow at her home before quizzing her at a police station about an argument with an activist on Twitter over so-called dead naming. A 38-year-old from Hitchin, Hertfordshire, had her photograph, DNA, and fingerprints taken and remains under investigation. Seriously, man, you know, all jokes aside, that sentence right there should really terrify anybody. You ever see V for Vendetta? V for Vendetta takes place, I'm pretty sure it takes place in the UK. I haven't seen it in a long time, but yes. This is insane. They took her DNA. That is freakish and terrifying. Why? Because she said a naughty word. She said a naughty word to somebody. Yeah. More than 2 months after her arrest, more than 2 months after her arrest on December 1st, she has had neither her mobile phone or laptop returned, which she says is hampering her studies for a master's in forensic psychology. Heaven forbid you hold the wrong opinion and say a naughty word to somebody. Writing on online forum Mumsnet, Mrs. Scottow, who has been served with a court order that bans her from referring to her accuser as a man, claimed, "I was arrested in my home by 3 officers with my autistic 10-year-old daughter and breastfed 20-month-old son present. I was then detained for 7 hours in a cell with no sanitary products, which I said I needed, before being interviewed, then later released under investigation. I was arrested for harassment and malicious communications because I called someone out and misgendered them on Twitter." We've done it. We're here. The dystopian nightmare is upon us. The United States has a strong last line of defense. It's called the Bill of Rights. It's called the Constitution. Thank God. Thank God. Not a day goes by that I don't learn something new about the founding fathers. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but I'm constantly learning new things about why the founding fathers of the United States believed in the things they did, why they put forth certain rules, and how it's led to, in my opinion, one of the greatest nations in the history of the planet. And it's not because of U.S. empire, which I oppose, like the military, foreign intervention, regime change. I don't. I oppose all those things. I don't like those things. It's because The document, the living document they created in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution has allowed us to expand civil rights to more and more people all the time. It's fantastic. It's fascinating. And you guys, you know my history. There was a period where this country was overtly identity-based, and there was identity law, and there was racial segregation. And these things changed because our government allows for a strong constitution with amendments. And as time goes on and we understand how we can protect and be, better to others, things do get better. What we're seeing here is terrifying regress, increasing segregation, thought policing, face crime. You think I'm exaggerating about the idea of face crime. A lot of people brought it up, but look at Covington. No one cared what actually happened. They just saw that kid's face and they said, too bad, he smirked. If you're not familiar with face crime, the idea was in 1984, this is my understanding, I could be wrong. In 1984, if they announced a victory and you didn't smile and cheer and your face didn't express joy, that was a face crime. They knew you were thinking something wrong because of your face. But let's continue. Confirming the arrest, Hertfordshire police said, "We take all reports of malicious communication seriously." The case is the latest where police have been accused of being heavy-handed in dealing with people who go online to debate gender issues. Sitcom writer Glenn Linehan was given a verbal harassment warning by West Yorkshire police after transgender activist Stephanie Hayden reported him for referring to her by her previous names and pronouns on Twitter. Okay, if I call someone a hamster, if I say you're a hamster, will I get arrested? No, of course not. Well, not in the US, but in the UK, no, of course not. Will Twitter ban me if I call you a hamster? No, they won't. And I don't want to, there's a specific individual I want to bring up, but considering we're talking about bannings and potential wrongdoing, I'm not going to name anybody. There's an individual who used to insult people in very gross ways, got banned for it, got reinstated. I guess it was a long-term suspension or it was a permanent ban, but eventually got reinstated somehow, and now refers to people as hamsters, among other small woodland creatures. This individual is not being banned for referring to people as small woodland creatures. So the question then arises, if you call someone, if you call a straight cis male a woman, will you be banned? The answer is no, you won't. It's only if you're talking to a trans individual. So you can clearly see that it's not about being insulting or demeaning. It's specifically about an activist. It's specifically about an ideology, a certain belief system that's held by not just the left. And this is something that a very important distinction that came up when I was on Joe Rogan, that there are people on the left who don't support trans people, right? It's typically intersectional feminists who hold these ideologies. So it's not necessarily the left. It is specifically this growing faction of dogmatic individuals who hold this ideological position, this very religious position. I don't want to go on too long, so I got to jump over to Nick Monroe here because he made a thread about it. It says, Mother 38 is arrested for misgendering. Confirming the arrest, Hertfordshire police says, "We take all reports of malicious communication seriously. But here's what he says. This is interesting. British people, do you want to protest this? Make a block list of all UK police Twitter accounts. Signed, a rebellious American willing to give you guys peaceful ideas for standing up for yourselves." He says, individually, it's a powerful symbolic gesture to show you disagree with UK police acting on Twitter. Together, it'll cripple their efforts in policing online speech. Even if it's just a little bit harder for them to crack down via tweets, it's a start. What's fascinating here is that in order for the police to actually know about this, now, sure, someone will report you. They'll probably screen grab your tweet and they'll post it. But if you block the police out of sight, out of mind, it will make it less likely that they'll come and bother you and charge you with things. It'll make it very difficult for them to interact with you in these ways. But what's really terrifying here is that when it comes to Twitter bannings, when it comes to arresting people, these are people engaging in conversation. Conversation is becoming illegal in the UK, okay? That's crazy. On Twitter, you can be banned for literally having a conversation with someone if they get angry with you. That's the point of Twitter, to talk to each other. It's a conversation. So when we look at the case of Meghan Murphy, the radical feminist who was banned for saying men aren't women, though. So my understanding is, to clarify, too, for those that may have watched the podcast, apparently she said men aren't women, though, got a suspension, was brought back, and then tweeted about her suspension, and apparently named the individual that was part of the conversation, so they permanently banned her for it. I still don't think she should be banned. No one is above criticism. No one. You should be able to criticize or believe what you want to believe. These people aren't criminals. I'm sorry. In the UK, they are. And that's nightmarish. And you know what? I don't really want to go there in the near future because you guys in the UK, you live in a dystopian nightmare. I'm not even kidding. They literally just arrested a woman for saying a mean word on Twitter. Yeah, you guys live in a backwards country. You guys lost the plot. I'm sorry. And I want to say you guys, I don't mean like the good people of the UK. I think for the most part, a lot of people in the UK understand how insane this is. You know, there was a guy who was recently investigated for, I believe it was misgendering. There was another video I watched that was hilarious where a guy told a cop to shut up. And so they show up to his house. They arrested him for it. It's like this big, long thread that went over through weeks. It went viral on YouTube. Man. Well, he says, according to this, the UK police give a shit about community relations via Twitter as well. So you'd be impacting their interests. So the issue here is, look, people can still report you if you live in the UK. They can screenshot your tweets. They can, and they can use, you can set up a new account. You can open the tweet in incognito mode. You can still see it. But it is true. If everybody just mass blocks all of the police accounts, it will be harder for them to see these things. They won't see retweets. They won't see anything in search. Isn't it kind of strange that you can impact them in this way? It is. But anyway, I'm going to wrap up here before I ramble too long. I thought this was I thought this story was particularly important, but I do think it's a very interesting show of the dramatic escalation of where we're headed as a culture. What happens in the UK does tend to hit here in the US eventually. You know, we do have a relation, though things are different. They are. I think the Constitution is going to keep us safe. I hope so. But there are a lot of activists who advocate against free speech. There are activists who are advocating on the left in favor of massive multinational corporations restricting speech. These things are terrifying. This is more terrifying. So to our cousins across the pond, man, I send you my condolences, and I wish you well. You guys got to do something. You really do. Look, I'm not much of an activist. There's when it comes to like, you know, left-right positions, economic positions, my opinions aren't particularly strong. And for the most part, not, you know, like I argued for the progressive tax and a lot of people started criticizing me saying I don't know what I'm talking about. I can respect that. Absolutely. I just have some ideas, but there's a reason why I remain kind of tepid on so many issues. It's because I just don't know. And every time I speak up like, hey, I think a progressive tax makes sense, I get inundated with articles telling me like why I need to rethink my position. And I do. Hasn't changed my mind, though. I'm still in favor of it. But because this is one of the things that I've actually read a lot about, a decent amount. I'm not the smartest person in the world. But when it comes to free speech, when it comes for the right of individuals to express themselves, they need to be able to. Because when you have a government forcing people to bottle up their rage, their fears, things that they're worried about, not letting them communicate, well, you're setting yourself up for a dangerous insurgency. Seriously, we'll end here. Stick around. I'll have another video up at 1 p.m. on this channel, 4 p.m. on the main channel, and then 6 o'clock back on this channel. So thanks for hanging out. I will see you in the at 1.